All right, let's get started talking about forces. So a force, of course, is a push or pull acting on an object. And it can change the motion of an object, but sometimes it doesn't. We're going to talk about that later. A force is a vector quantity. So remember, we have talked about a vector quantity already so far, and you should know that a vector quantity just means that a force will give you information such as magnitude and direction. So a force, when written down or described, would maybe look like 10 newtons to the right. It has the magnitude, 10 newtons, and it has the direction to the right. So when does a force exist? Do we always have forces? Yes and no. So as long as there's some sort of interaction happening between two objects, there is a force upon each of the objects. However, when that interaction ceases or stops, the two objects no longer experience the force. Therefore, forces only exist as a result of an interaction. All right, let's talk about the unit for forces. So how do we measure forces? When we calculate a force, what kind of unit do we put behind that number? So the SI unit for force is a Newton, and you're going to see that written with a capital N. So that capital N is a shortcut, essentially. 1 Newton is equal to 1 kilogram times meter per second squared. Kind of a mouthful, definitely easier to say 1 Newton. A Newton is defined as the amount of force required to accelerate 1 kilogram of mass at a rate of 1 meter per second squared. So, lucky for you, we're just going to be saying Newton. All right, so let's talk about types of forces, or technically two categories of forces. So the first one we're going to look at is a contact force. So contact forces are simply forces that act through direct contact between two objects. That means they're touching. So examples could include applied forces, so a push or a pull, frictional forces that you should be familiar with, tensional forces, normal force, air resistance force. We're going to be going over these momentarily, so don't worry. The next category would be long-range forces. So these are forces that act over a distance between two objects. The most common one that everyone knows is gravity, gravitational force. That is a long-range force that acts over a great distance. Electrical force and magnetic force are also long-range forces, and we'll be talking about those later in the semester. All right, that concludes part 1 of our lesson, so thank you for watching. If you have any questions, make sure you leave a comment or shoot me an email. Thanks.